Week 14, Lesson B, making presentations and delivering them. This is from Chapter 38 from Everyone's an Author. Detailed speaking notes on making presentations, the roadmap for success, anticipate your audience, identify who will be in the room or virtual audience, in this case, probably just me, right? Assess their existing knowledge about the topic. What information do they need? What evidence appeals most to them? Engagement tips. Establish eye contact to create a personal connection. If presenting virtually, look into the camera for a similar effect. Be clear about your purpose. Review your assignment. Are you providing information, persuading, proposing an action plan? Define your stance. Decide how you will position yourself. As an expert, a curious learner, a researcher, or an advocate. Align your stance with the topic and audience expectations. Consider the context. Know the venue or platform. Prepare and test equipment beforehand. Always have a backup plan for potential technology failures. Be mindful of your time limit and structure your presentation accordingly. Think about your genre. What is the purpose of the presentation? For example, are you reporting on a topic? Are you proposing a solution? Tailor your approach based on the genre. Language choices. Match your language style to audience expectations. Decide whether to conform or challenge these expectations for strategic impact. I'm going to go back to the consider your context. Always have a backup plan for potential technology failures. And also the idea of be mindful of your time limit and structure your presentation accordingly. And I want to add, because I teach a speech class quite often. I think I might have even taught this like over time more than I've taught the English classes. And I think one of my big like takeaways from teaching speech and from like presenting a lot at this level is like a lot of people plan on maybe asking a lot of questions and like that being a lot of back and forth with people when you give a presentation, and that eating up a lot of your time, if that makes sense. Like, because you're planning on, let's say, for example, I need to, for me, I'm trying to typically do like an 80-minute class with my live classes. It's like my max amount of time. And, typically these classes maybe have a 10-minute break or whatever. So I'm thinking like 70 minutes. But I used to plan on having like quite a bit of questions in there. And I think I've talked about this in this class before, but some classes don't like to answer questions. So if you plan on talking for 60 or 70 minutes and like a lot of that is like trying to have a lot of discussion, you're going to run into a problem when you go to have that discussion and nobody wants to talk to you, right? You're going to be like, oh, shoot, I can't actually talk about this for 20 minutes. So that can be a serious problem. I always like to, when I'm talking about time limit and structure, I'm specifically here thinking about like sometimes having a backup plan when you go to speak, or like having more than enough information is typically the way to go about it, right? Because that way you're easily going to hit the time requirements and you can just like stop talking about some of the things, right? Versus like, I don't have enough to talk about is more embarrassing than I just had too much to talk about and I could let you go early because I had more to say, but that's fine, like I don't need to talk about it all. Media and visual elements, design considerations. Decide if visual aids, slides, handouts, flip charts will enhance your message. Ensure simplicity and clarity. Avoid cluttered visuals. Use large fonts like 24-point minimum and bold type for easy readability. I know this class is the virtual class, and I provide printouts typically for my live classes, and I provide them for you guys as well. I don't know how much you follow them, but I do that on purpose because I think it makes it easier if you have something to follow along with personally. And I also like it better than slides just because like you have it right in front of you and you can like follow along the whole time, versus like a slide, it's like far away and you can't really like take notes on the paper. So that's why I like to give it to students when I teach live. Slide tips. Keep slides simple, focusing on one idea per slide. Avoid dense text walls or walls of words. Use graphs or charts to convey complex ideas effectively. Begin with an introductory slide with essential details, title, your name, etc. A big thing about slides that I also learned while teaching these classes is, and I think this has changed from when I was in college, and not like most classes require certain things from slideshows anyways, but what I was reading is most slides are the most effective when they just have pictures on them and maybe like one bullet point, right? And like it's mostly about the picture and less about the words on that picture, because a slideshow in theory is supposed to be to like jog your memory so you can talk about what's on the slide, right? So let's say you were like going to make a slide over like a family vacation. You would just like take the picture that's going to jog your memory, maybe like write like one key detail on that slide, and then it's kind of your idea or like your job to just like talk about what's on the slide versus like having a picture on there and then like jam it full of paragraphs that like nobody's going to be able to read it by the time you flip, right? So that's the new idea on slides, or at least from what I learned when I was like researching to teach this class of like what like modern people are talking about slides. That's not what I learned in college, and not what I would probably assign, like 3 to 5 bullets per slide or whatever, or like add extra slides if you're going to have ones with just pictures, right? But handouts. Provide detailed information as handouts when necessary. Distribute them at the right moment to avoid distractions. Again, I'm a big handout fan. Personally, I like them. I like getting them, so I like giving them as well. They help me. There's just something to pay attention to when somebody's talking, and then I know where we're at in the conversation as well, right? So I like to give them out. I like to use them, so that's where I'm at. Audio, visual media. Test all embedded content, audios, videos, etc. on the presentation platform. Ensure media directly supports your points. Design consistency. Use consistent font sizes, colors, and layouts to aid comprehension. Be mindful of color palettes to accommodate all viewers, including those with color blindness. Source acknowledgement. Attribute all visual sources either on the slide or in a reference list. The way I see slideshows, very much like an essay, except each page of an essay is probably going to be like 1 or 2 slides, right? But in that case, you'll have a title slide that has all your name and information on it, like your title page. And then the last page of your slideshow will be your references slide, right? Where it has all the references for the stuff you used. And that's just the easiest way I can think about it, is that it's basically a paper that you've broken up and put into a different presentation style. Preparation and structure, main point focus. Identify one primary message and build your content around it. Evidence collection. Use stories, statistics, examples, and visuals to illustrate your points. Clear structure. Possible formats. Compare the past, what was to the future, what could be. Introduce existing perspectives before presenting your unique stance. Use storytelling to create tension and resolution, making the presentation more engaging. Transitions. Help your audience follow along by providing clear overviews and signposts. For example, I will discuss 3 key points. Repeat critical points for emphasis and clarity. A dynamic introduction. Engage your audience with a story, a surprising claim, a thought-provoking question. Establish your credibility early to build trust. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but we talked about some of this in the first week. People remember personal stories, like, I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's like something like 87% better than just stats and statistics. People remember personal stories. Like, we're hardwired as like a human race to understand stories and like empathize with other people. So that's like a great way to like build a connection with an audience, is like start with a story about yourself, or like a story of why this relates to anything. And that's like one of the best ways to get people to remember certain things, right? In your conclusion, reiterate your main message. Explain why your argument matters, or leave the audience with a call to action. Delivery techniques. Practice. Rehearse multiple times. Get feedback from peers or friends. and ensure you stay within the allotted time. Voice control. Record yourself to refine volume, speed, and clarity. Use pauses and emphasis to highlight key points. I don't know if I've talked about this much here, but I used to work at the radio station for like about a decade when I was in high school through college. So I've had a lot of practice with voice control, and it is something that like it takes a long time to get used to how you actually sound, if that makes sense, because we sound different to ourselves than we actually than the sound that leaves us, if that makes sense, when it bounces around or whatever. So it does take a while to like kind of understand how you sound and when you need to take pauses. Body language. Maintain eye contact to build rapport. Stand straight. Avoid fidgeting or looking at the floor. Move around purposefully, but don't block visuals. Adapt for virtual presentations. Test your camera, audio, and screen sharing setup. Look directly into the camera as if speaking to an individual. Audience engagement. Use vivid language. Incorporate metaphors and imagery to make your message memorable. Simplify complex ideas. Speak in a conversational tone that's easy to follow. Avoid jargon or overly complicated language. Respond to feedback. Adapt based on the audience's reactions during the presentation. Final tips for success. Ensure slides are visible and support your key messages. Use diagrams or charts to clarify complex ideas. Keep your delivery natural and enthusiastic. End on a strong note, leaving your audience with something to think about. Now, chapter 39, writing for a public audience. What does it mean to write for a public audience? Writing for a public audience typically means creating content for non-academic readers. The audience often has a general interest in the topic rather than specialized expertise. For example, instead of professors or researchers, your audience might include everyday people curious about your subject. Understand your purpose for writing. All good public writing has a clear purpose. Ask yourself, are you writing to inform, entertain, persuade, evoke emotion, a combination of these goals? Identifying your purpose will influence the genres and media you use. For example, newsletters, reports, websites, videos, proposals, opinion essays, flyers, and social media posts. Be well informed about your topic. Provide specific details to engage and inform readers. Use statistics to give context and credibility. Offer relevant background information to ensure the audience understands the significance of your topic. For example, include historical context or specific situations that inspired your writing. Connect with your audience. Even though a public audience may seem general, it is rarely everyone. Identify a specific segment of the population you're addressing. Example, are you writing for parents, young professionals, or hobby enthusiasts? Engagement tips. Understand how to capture and hold attention. Use relevant examples and relatable background information. Language, tone, and style. Choose language, tone, and style based on your audience's preferences. Avoid highly formal or academic language that may alienate general readers. Avoid long, complex sentences or unfamiliar jargon. Aim for a conversational tone to create a connection. Vivid, concrete details to make relatable and engaging. And visuals that enhance comprehension and keep the audience interested. Managing nervousness. What are 5 common reasons for speakers' nervousness? The fear of being stared at. People don't like being the center of attention. Fear of failure or rejection. People are afraid of looking stupid. Fear of the unknown. Most people don't public speak often, thus this is a new feeling for many people. A traumatic experience in the past. You may have had a painful memory or a humiliating presentation from the past. Social anxiety. For various reasons, you may feel fearful about being in front of a large crowd. Consider the fact that fear of public speaking is the #1 fear in the country. I feel it's safe to say that many people feel one of the above ways, if not all of the above ways. Why are fear and nervousness beneficial to the public speaker? Fear and nervousness can be beneficial for a public speaker because they activate the body's fight or flight response, releasing adrenaline. This heightened state of alertness can enhance focus and energy, leading to a more dynamic and engaging delivery. It also demonstrates to the speaker that they care about their message, motivating them to prepare thoroughly. Why is delivering a speech from memory a bad idea? Delivering a speech from memory can be problematic, as it increases the risk of forgetting lines or becoming overly rehearsed. This approach may lead to a less spontaneous and authentic delivery. Additionally, relying solely on memorization can heighten anxiety, as any deviation from the memorized script may cause the speaker to lose their place. For me, and I'm talking about this from this class lens mostly right now, I'm giving this speech several times a week. I have all of these notes with me to talk about them kind of verbatim, but I do often the best when I go off topic like I am right now. So the best public speaking is kind of like just notes to jog your memory, and you like learn a lot about a topic. Again, that's why since the beginning of the semester, I've been telling everyone to choose things that they are very passionate about. And I think for this final presentation, and again, this can be just with me, so think about it more of like, I've just got to talk with Mr. Johnson about something that I'm very interested in for 5 minutes, and it's not that bad, right? You know, I need some slides and I need to come up with a topic I'm passionate about, and I'm just going to talk with Mr. Johnson, and that's not, you know, particularly scary. There doesn't have to be anyone else there. So, so don't be overly rehearsed. I think that's the worst way to go about it, is to like try to memorize your entire speech. Like, this isn't acting, right? Like, if you're going to go give a speech, you're going to want your notes there with you, just in case you forget where you are. I'm going to add this here right now. I think the other thing that, like, when I'm working on a speech or a presentation, kind of like how these notes are formatted and how I've been talking about, I like to add a lot of space between things I'm talking about, right? Because then I can easily find where I've left off. It's a little bit harder if you like try to talk about your essay or about a speech and you don't give yourself a lot of space breaks to talk about those things. So be sure to give yourself a lot of room. So you know, if you do lose your place, you can easily find where you were just at. Is shyness a liability to a speaker? Shyness can be a liability for a speaker if it hinders effective communication. However, with proper techniques and practice, shy individuals can transform their shyness into a unique speaking style. Shy speakers may need to work harder to build confidence, but overcoming shyness can result in powerful, authentic, and relatable presentations. How can a speaker reduce excessive tension before a speech? Speakers can reduce excessive tension by practicing relaxation techniques such as deep breathing, visualization, and progressive muscle relaxation. Engaging in regular physical exercise can also help manage overall stress levels. Additionally, thorough preparation and rehearsal instill confidence, diminishing anxiety before a speech. I really like the deep breathing. I found that worked in the live classes I've taught with this. Me and many past students have talked about deep breathing before giving a speech being something that really does work. You know, try to calm yourself down, breathe deep, and try to forget about it, right? Try to just like get relaxed. Also, I personally really like the visualization. When people ask me just in general, you know, friends, family, colleagues, what I think the best advice about public speaking would be, it's reframing your brain around things. And that could be, you know, visualize, in this case, could be visualize being done with the speech, right? If you're stressed about the speech, visualize the feeling of when you are finished with it. I also like the idea of reframing this. Most people they feel nervous, right? Reframe that nervous to excited, okay? You're not nervous about it, you're excited about it. You're excited for it to go well. You could just even be excited for it to be over, right? But you're not nervous, you're excited. And they're very similar feelings if you think about it, and you just got to retrain your brain to be like, this is an exciting thing. and not a nervous thing, okay? And I found that personally to be very helpful. Explain the idea. Think of communication, not performance. Think of communication, not performance. Emphasize the importance of connecting with the audience rather than focusing solely on your delivery. Effective communication involves establishing a genuine connection, conveying a message that resonates with the audience, and encouraging interaction. This approach shifts the speaker's focus from self-consciousness to audience engagement. I think this a lot depends on how large your audience size is, but this is a large reason, not to say that I wouldn't do this anyways, but I try to get to know everybody in my classes pretty well, right? Like, I want to know you. I want to say hi to you every day to build that, engagement with you, essentially. So my communication is more effective with you. You're more willing to listen to me if you like me, right? That's kind of just like general idea of how life works, in my opinion, but especially in this case, right? We're talking about audience engagement. You're going to be more engaged if I'm engaging you even just at the beginning of class, right? Versus like somebody that just is like, I just show up and I start talking. It's a lot less engaging, okay? Does an audience detect most of a speaker's nervous symptoms? Explain your answer. Generally, audiences are not as adept at detecting a speaker's nervous symptoms as the speaker might believe. While nervous symptoms may be noticeable to the speaker, the audience is more forgiving and focused on the message. Well-managed nervous energy can even enhance the speaker's authenticity, making them more relatable. I always stress this. No one is going to be able to tell if you're nervous unless you are super nervous. And even then, most people aren't really thinking about how you are doing, right? Just think about it. When somebody's presenting, are you oftentimes thinking about like the mistakes they're making, or are you thinking about what's for lunch, right? What's for dinner, like what's going on later? Like, I think most people are not really as critical as we think when we're presenting, right? That's just a personal feeling of mine. Again, as somebody that's, taught the public speaking class many times, most students are not, they know that they're going to be in that same position, and they're not like watching you as somebody that's like hypercritical, right? They don't want you to do the same thing to them and like boo their speech. So that's not really something that, don't think too much about it, right? Think of your audience as an audience that's gonna be very helpful, especially in this level of public speaking. Why should you never call attention to your nervousness? Calling attention to nervousness can shift the audience focus from the message to the speaker's anxiety, creating a distraction. Instead, it's advisable to acknowledge any nervousness, subtly if at all, and then redirect the audience attention back to the topic at hand. This approach helps maintain the integrity of the message. Why should speakers not be upset when they see unsmiling faces of their listeners? Unsmiling faces in the audience may not necessarily indicate disinterest or disagreement. Audience express engagement and focus in various ways, and some individuals simply have neutral or serious facial expressions. Speakers should not be upset, but rather interpret audience feedback hostility, considering nonverbal cues along with verbal responses. My personal advice here would be look for the people in the audience that are really engaging with you and start talking to them more so than everybody else that's not engaging as much, right? And that makes it a lot easier to look out and see somebody who's really paying attention, somebody who's really like listening to what you're talking about, and keep trying to focus on that aspect of a speech, right? Try not to focus on the people that just aren't paying attention to you, because that is just not going to help you as much, right? You'll be distracted by them being distracted, and you don't want to forget where you're at. Why should a speaker act as if he or she is confident? Acting as if one is confident can have a positive impact on both the speaker and the audience. Confidence is contagious, and a speaker who appears confident is more likely to engage the audience and convey credibility. It also helps the speaker manage nervousness, fostering a more authentic and impactful presentation. I feel like, acting confident can be quite difficult, right? If you do not feel confident, acting that way is pretty hard, but just build that confidence skill. Just whenever you, again, have a time where you may have to public speak, just think about it and just be like, I'm ready for this. I have to get through this. So, reframe that feeling in your brain, right? Like, this is an opportunity to grow. If I'm not good at this, if I do not want to do this, I'm maybe excited for this to be over, not nervous about it. And I'm excited to learn something versus I'm nervous about it and I don't think I can do it. All right. Understand nervousness is normal. It's essential to recognize that feeling nervous before speaking is a common human experience. Accept that a certain level of nervousness is normal and can even enhance performance. Preparation is key. Thoroughly prepare your speech or presentation. Knowing your material well boosts confidence. Practice your delivery multiple times to familiarize yourself with the content. Visualize success. Visualize yourself speaking confidently and successfully in front of your audience. Positive mental imagery can help alleviate anxiety and build confidence. Practice relaxation techniques. Incorporate relaxation techniques such as deep breathing or meditation before speaking. Calming exercises can help manage stress and reduce nervousness. Focus on the message, not yourself. Instead of dwelling on your nervousness, shift your focus to the message you want to convey. Concentrate on the value and importance of your content. Engage with the audience. Establish a connection with your audience. Engage in eye contact and interact with them. Viewing your speech as a conversation rather than a performance can reduce nervousness. This is my other big question I have for students that I've seen a lot of. And I know this is not a live class, so it's a little bit different here. But I feel like most students sitting in a chair in the back of the room don't have a problem answering a question in front of everybody. Like, I'm asking you guys questions right here. Most of you guys, we have no problem talking in front of everybody here. But as soon as I tell you it's a presentation and it's graded, all of a sudden we're nervous. What's the difference, right? There's really not much difference if you think about it, of just like talking from your seat in the back of the room versus I'm giving a presentation in front of everybody. You're still in front of everybody. You're just like not standing. Makes me wonder, if you're sitting in your chair, could you give that presentation in the back? Would it be more easy that way? Like, those are my real questions. It like makes me wonder, it's like, is it just the fact that we're standing? Or like, if you're sitting in front of everybody at a desk, would it be weird? Like, I don't know. Like, these are my questions of like, how do we make this so it's not as scary for people? This goes back with everything we've talked about all year. Start with a familiar topic. If possible, begin your public speaking journey with a topic you are familiar and comfortable with. Gradually expand to more challenging subjects as you gain confidence. I had a student last year who was very nervous about this project, and I told her, I was like, just do exactly what I've been saying all year. Choose something you're passionate and interested in, and then just come talk to me about it. You'll do fine. She ended up doing astrology, and she talked to me about astrology for like 20 plus minutes, right? She already knew a lot about it. She just like put together a presentation at that point in time, and we had more of a conversation. She didn't even have to look at her notes or whatever. She knew all about it. It's something she was already passionate about, right? So I would just say, choose something you're passionate, you already know about for this, right? Something you already want to talk about. Goes back to what I've been saying since day one. Pick something that you want to talk with your best friend about, and your best friend doesn't want to listen to you talk about it anymore, and then tell me, okay? It's the whole point of this. Use visual aids and props. Visual aids and props can serve as helpful tools, diverting attention from nervousness. They also provide a structured format to your speech. I know this might not look like it, but this is my visual aid right here. I consider this like a bulletproof vest almost. This stops me from being nervous when I'm in front of people, ironically enough, okay? If I have my thick notes with me, I know I can just go back to the notes when I run out of things to talk about or when I'm feeling nervous, right? So that's my visual aid, right? My prop. It helps me a lot. Positive self-talk. Replace negative thoughts with positive affirmations. Again, I like this in all aspects of life, not just public speaking, right? Remind yourself of past success and focus on your capabilities. You can do this, right? Everybody can accomplish this. Know your audience. Understanding your audience's interests and needs can boost your confidence. Tailor your message to resonate with your specific audience. Record and evaluate yourself. Record your practice sessions and evaluate your performance. This helps identify areas of improvement and builds confidence over time. I've been recording all these lectures all semester, right? So I can post them for my online classes. It can be hard to watch yourself that long, right? Talk about things and see what you can do better every time, but that's how we learn from experience. Each public speaking opportunity is a chance to learn and grow. Embrace feedback and use it constructively for future presentations. Again, I think this is also great advice, right? Just like everything in life, practice, practice, practice. And in this case, in order to practice, you need to get in front of a live audience to speak, or you need to give, a presentation to somebody, even if it's just a friend, right? Give it to them first, right? That's going to help you practice talking in front of anybody, and that's going to help you a lot. But I wouldn't have been comfortable. I've done several weddings, but they got easier over time, right? Every time, the first time I talked live on air on the radio was a lot more difficult than by the time I was doing it at the end of that job. I barely even thought about it, right? It was just an automatic response. You just don't think about it anymore because you're so experienced at that idea. Seek support. Share your nervousness with supportive friends, family, or mentors. Receiving encouragement and constructive feedback can be beneficial. I don't know if you guys have noticed, I aim to be as constructive as possible in this class. It's one of my main goals, is to give you encouraging and constructive feedback rather than just kind of harping on what you have done wrong. I try to emphasize what you did right and what we can just fix to make things better. So again, if you want to share things with me, I try to be as encouraging as possible. Maintain a positive body language. Use open and positive body language to convey confidence. Stand tall, make eye contact, and use gestures appropriately. Again, I think that this is just great general life advice, right? Positive body language and strong body language, scientifically proven to help you in a lot of areas of life, right? Especially confidence, what we've talked about before. Celebrate small wins. Acknowledge and celebrate small victories in your public speaking journey. Recognizing progress builds confidence over time, right? Every time you do a good job, you should have a small celebration for yourself, right? Celebrate your wins. Celebrate the fact you are getting better. Remember, overcoming nervousness is a gradual process. With consistent practice, self-awareness, and the application of these strategies, individuals can significantly reduce anxiety and become more comfortable and effective public speakers. Reaching the audience. What is an audience-centered speaker? An audience-centered speaker is someone who places the needs, interests, and perspectives of the audience at the forefront of their speech, preparation, and delivery. This approach ensures that the message resonates with the audience, leading to better engagement and understanding. What is meant by audience analysis and adaptation? Audience analysis. This involves gathering information about the audience to understand their demographics, values, attitudes, and knowledge level. Adaptation refers to adjusting the message, tone, and delivery based on the insights gained through audience analysis. This ensures the message aligns with the audience's expectations and preferences. I like to think about this audience and analysis adaptation. My metaphor for this is, think about a rocket scientist who's giving a speech to kindergartners. That can probably either be the greatest speech of his career, or it can be a total dud, right? He can be like having bottle rockets in the back, or he can be, like writing scientific stuff on the board, and all the kindergartners are like, what is going on here? So, understanding your audience is going to make huge changes to what speech you're going to give that day. How can a speaker get advanced information about an audience? Conduct surveys, questionnaires, or interviews beforehand. Utilize online platforms, social media, or organizational data. Communicate with event organizers or use previous knowledge if available. What are taboos and why are they an important concern for a speaker? Taboos are culturally sensitive topics that are considered inappropriate or offensive. They vary across cultures and communities. Speakers need to be aware of taboos to avoid causing discomfort or alienation with the audience. Do international audiences usually prefer a presentation that is humorous and informal, or one that is serious and formal? Explain your answers. Preferences vary, but generally it's crucial to strike a balance. Humor and informality can enhance engagement, but cultural norms and nature of the topic should guide the level of formality. Research and adapt accordingly. Ethnocentrism is the tendency to judge other cultures by the standards and values of one's own, often resulting in a biased or prejudiced perspective. Speakers need to be mindful of this to avoid cultural insensitivity. Who is the best source of information about the needs of listeners with disabilities and why? The individuals themselves are the best source. Directly communicate with them to gather feedback and be open to accommodate requests. This approach ensures inclusivity and addresses specific needs effectively. What approach should you take if listeners have an unfavorable attitude toward your speech goal? Acknowledge their concerns respectfully, address potential objections in the speech, emphasize common ground and benefits, strive to build rapport and credibility to foster a more receptive audience. What guidelines should be followed for a speech to an audience that knows little or nothing about your topic? Simplify your language, avoid jargon and use simple language. Provide background, offer context and foundational information. Use analogies, relate complex concepts to familiar ones. Engage questions, encourage questions for clarification. What might happen if you give a speech that's different from the one the audience was expecting? Mismatched expectations can lead to confusion, disengagement, or even a negative reaction from the audience. It's essential to align the speech with the audience's expectations to maintain their interest and trust. Getting the audience's attention, relevance, novelty, and importance. Tell the audience why. Explain the relevance, novelty, or importance of the topic and claims being presented. The example: eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich doesn't have to result in sticky fingers and stained clothes. Types of support: understanding individual learning styles. Recognize that individuals can learn differently, for example, visually, auditorily, physically, or verbally. Vary the way in which you support your argument to reach a broader audience. Again, we're going back to the reason why I provide notes. Some people learn better from reading things, right? If you're reading something and listening at the same time, you're going to pick it up even better, right? Because you're getting that same information in more than one way, and that's just a good way to get people to pay attention and to learn more. Facts and statistics, making statistical data relatable. Facts and statistics can be hard for the audience to relate to. Allow enough time to explain statistical data, providing context to enhance understanding. The use of short stories to enhance engagement. Incorporate short stories to illustrate points and engage the audience emotionally. For example, you can share a story about a little boy whose sandwich was ruined by jelly-soaked bread. Visuals, effective visual tools. Use visual tools like PowerPoint, Prezi, or similar tools to emphasize points. Keep visuals simple and aligned with the speech content. Sensory descriptors, engage the audience senses. Use sensory descriptors, hearing, seeing, tasting, touching, to make the audience feel a part of the speech. For example, describe the little boy's experience with sticky, gooey bread and jelly. Vocal delivery, tone and volume emphasis. Understand the importance of tone in conveying emotions. Vary your tone naturally to avoid sounding monotone and make the speech less formal. Use volume variations for attention grabbing. Energize the audience, interactive techniques. Ask reflective questions to energize the audience. For example, encourage the audience to think back to a time when they had sticky hands from a peanut butter and jelly. Understanding comprehension, providing understandable information. Limit the amount of new information and go slowly when presenting new topics. Use familiar information to keep the audience relate to the new information. Clear organization, organizing information effectively. Use signposts to guide the audience through the speech. Numerical signposts and questions help in clear organization. Practice in familiarity, presenting with confidence. Practice helps in presenting a clear roadmap. Knowing the introduction and conclusion keeps the speaker on track and credible. Vocabulary and conciseness. Use familiar terms. Use vocabulary familiar to the audience. For example, using PB&J for peanut butter and jelly for conciseness. Audience retention. Enhancing information retention. Restate and repeat key points for better retention. Limit the number of supporting points to 2 or 3 for each claim. And an impactful closure. Leaving a lasting impression. Make the last statement impactful for audience retention. For example, ending the statement that makes the audience crave a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Then we have writing style and audience connection. Write the way you talk. Conversational tone. The primary rule is to write in a conversational tone that resonates with your audience. Avoid stiffness and formality, making the writing sound like a friendly conversation. Universal appeal. Aim for universal appeal by ensuring your writing feels like a good friend speaking to the reader. Create a connection through relatable and approachable language. Caution with casualness. Be mindful of sounding too casual. Avoid slang, offensive language, or inappropriate expressions. Steer clear of using internet abbreviations like LOL. Proofreading. Double check for spelling, grammar, and usage errors to maintain professionalism and readability. Learn the language of your audience. Identify your audience. Determine your target audience by creating a comprehensive list of their characteristics, preferences, and behaviors. Construct a profile. Use gathered information to construct a detailed profile of your audience. Understand demographics, interests, and communication preferences. Personal connection. Establish personal connection with your audience by paying attention to their feedback and preferences. Acknowledge and respond to their opinions and comments. Language observation. Observe and adopt the language your audience uses, especially when discussing your products or services. Mirror their phrases, word choice, and tempo to enhance relatability. Terminology alignment. Use the same terminology your audience employs to ensure seamless communication. Aligning with their language creates a sense of understanding and shared identity. Tailor your communication with phrasing consistency. Maintain consistency in phrasing to reinforce familiarity. Replicate the communication style that resonates with your audience. Adapt to preferences. Adapt your writing style to match the preferences of your target audience. Be flexible in your tone and language to ensure better engagement. Facilitate a continuous feedback loop with your audience. Regularly assess their responses to refine and tailor your communication strategy.